Well, welcome back, AAHOA. We are now covering today point number 10 in our 12 Points video series. And joining me today, I'm very pleased to have C.K. Patel, a former AAHOA chairman, and who has always been a champion for the 12 Points of Fair Franchising. So he's going to help me address some of these issues that arise in point number 10, franchise sales ethics and practices, proper disclosures. And this point stands for the fact that franchisors should mandate fair and honest selling practices among their salespersons and agents. And the reason that we say that is we strongly believe that the franchisors should use their best efforts to identify whether any of their sales agents or persons acting on behalf of their franchisors made any oral or written representations or promises to any franchisee applicants or reached any agreements with any franchisee applicants that are not contained in the required FTC franchise disclosure document, the FTD as we know it. Let's kind of start talking about some of these issues. To start off, when you were starting in your business and over the years that you owned your various hotels, did you negotiate with the franchisors on any of the terms?
Always, because when you purchase a property, you negotiate with the sellers, right? Mm-hmm. So negotiation has to be there. You just don't sign something which is provided to you that, okay, sign this dotted line. You never do that. You always go to the attorneys, seek the advice, because you know how to run the hotel. You are not the attorney. There's so much language discrepancies in the franchise agreement, where they use words like will, shall, must. All those small one letters has significant value in the agreement, right? Mm-hmm. So always seek the advice of the franchise attorney who is just working for the franchisee side, not the franchisor side. So yes, I would definitely suggest that. Mm-hmm. Have your attorney read your agreement.
Sure, and that's very good advice. Now, when you were first talking to the attorneys that you were retaining, or even when you were first talking to the salespersons, did you use the 12 Points of Fair Franchising as a guide for some of the terms you were looking for?
Always, because this is the guiding point. This was created many years ago, 2001 or 2. It was introduced, and it's been going on ever since then. We've been educating our membership on these 12 points. And to tell you the truth, it is not 12 points anymore. If you look at the current agreement than what it was 15 years ago, right now it might be over 30 or 40 points you need to negotiate, right? So 12 point is just a starting, right? It has a lot of value, right? This will give you the footstep into the negotiation of the franchise agreement. But agreement has more than 12 points you need to negotiate in today's market.
Members will note that when they read the 12 points, the educational primer, that almost every point has numerous subparts because we're trying to cover all the different areas where members might most have concerns. But I'm curious about these negotiations. When you entered these negotiations, did you see results? Did you see that they were willing to change or revise some of the terms?
It all depends on how you negotiate and how desperate you are. See, salesmen are trained.
Sure.
They can figure out if they're desperate or they're desperate getting your location. If they're desperate getting your location, you get more things resolved, more things in your favor. But if you are desperate, if you show your desperateness to them, right, that you need this location, you need to sign the agreement, they'll throw everything in it and make you sign that. So it all depends on making the wise decision on our side, right? Franchise sales guys are trained to sell their brand. You are there to protect your hotel.
Right. Yes.
So there's a difference between brand and running the hotel.
Sure.
Right.
Right, and so as you said too, location, and I imagine if you're a multi-unit owner, that makes a difference.
Big
There's
difference.
probably a variety of factors that play into this.
Multi-unit, they always get a better deal because they already have so many properties in the system. and they negotiate it well.
Sure.
This is all for the newcomers. They need to negotiate, and they might not get everything because they're newcomer,
Sure.
but at least negotiate and move forward.
Did you see a difference in your negotiations if you had an attorney at your side versus if you were trying to do it on your own?
Always have attorney on your side.
Okay.
Because like I said earlier, the language in agreement, small little words can make a lot of difference, right? Tell the attorney what you ask the salesperson to be included, right? In real estate world, initially we call it letter of intent.
Sure.
All right. So write down everything you have talked to the salesperson, what salesperson has agreed to, and make sure that all of those items you talked with your attorney when you create the letter of intent, and they are included in the contract, right? So this attorney is must.
Right. Well, and you raise a very good point too, and that is exactly what this point number 10 is, that sales agents and representatives should not be promising anything that's not already in the agreement. So
Right.
if you have a promise from a sales agent or a representative to create a list of those so you can then bring them to your attorney and make sure they're in the agreement, and get that cleared
The
before
way you want
anything
it.
is signed.
The way you
Right.
want it in it.
Sure.
Not the way they want it.
Right, exactly. So, well, let's look at another factor in this point number 10, and that has to do with the practice of churning. Franchisors and their salespersons and agents should not engage in the practice of churning properties. And what we mean by that is where they're seeking an early termination, maybe of an older hotel, on the basis they might use a low QA or quality assurance inspection score, or maybe otherwise they decide to just terminate them so that instead they can either approve a newer hotel, a new application for a hotel of the same brand name in that area, or they can approve a conversion so that they get a newer converted hotel in that same exact area with the same flag. And why is that a concern for members?
According to my knowledge, what has been done in the past, they put a default clause in there, right, to get you out of the system. So even though if you build a brand new hotel 5 years ago, your term is coming up, they'll say, okay, we are not going to renew your agreement anymore, right? But we can give you to switch you to another brand of ours, so you don't have to pay the liquidated damages on it. So it looks like you are married to them for many years, 20 years, right? With a brand new property, in 5 years you have not generated enough revenue for yourself or the profit for yourself, right? Now they are saying that, okay, your building is not up to par with our new standards with the same brand. So we're gonna give you our lower end brand, but we're gonna keep you in the system to save you LDs, right? That is not fair. That is not fair. If you have a 20-year agreement, at the 5-year window, if you have a renovation plan, have that in the agreement from beginning, that after end of the 5th year, if there is a new PEEP, right, then if the franchisee is doing the entire thing, what is required by the PEEP, you allow them to stay in the system. You just don't kick them out for the lower brand of your branding, other brand, right? So it is very unfair for quite a few of our franchisees in AAHOA.
Sure. Every 5-year increment, maybe then if you want to ensure that you can stay in the brand, that you continue to upgrade, you continue to renovate, so you are highly competitive with any converted brand or new flag that might be applying to be in that area.
That is true.
Were there some key points of the 12 points that you thought were the most helpful?
Mandates. Nowadays, everything they put as a new mandate is an operational menu instead of the franchise agreement.
Right.
That's the worst thing has happened to the franchising industry. Because when I signed the agreement knowing the facts that, okay, this is what the franchisor is required, right? After 3-4 years, they'll mandate something, but they'll put it in the operational menu, right? So your entire contractual agreement to me, has no value because they are doing everything through the operational manual.
Sure.
And that's a wrong practice. If I'm agreeing to your contract today at these terms, right, you should abide by that for 5-year term if it's 5-year term, right? And you should not deviate from there. So these are the liquidated damages, area protection, mandate. These are all the key points in the franchising system, because you are risking your equity, you're risking your signature on the dotted line with the bank on the loan. If you fail, you're liable for everything, not the franchisor.
Right.
They'll still keep on charging you liquidated damages, even though if you fail.
Right.
Because of them.
Sure.
And that is not fair.
Right.
That is not.
So let's now turn and hear from another leader in the industry on this particular point, who can give some additional input on why this is so important.
The most important point, I feel, is where it all starts. For a franchise salesman who sells a franchise to a hotel owner. We found out after doing a survey throughout the country of AAHOA members that there was a big discrepancy in the way franchisees were being failed, and obviously it comes down to churning. This was prevalent onto almost 70, 80 hotels on the same exit, same members were being harassed by churning. They had numbers. It was all about numbers. They put pressure on the franchise salesman, who the franchise salesman disclosed to us that we're being pressured to sell brands. What we kill is what you eat is a message we have from the main brand. When someone is selling a brand under the AAHOA banner, then it is AAHOA's duty to protect that member. And if we just take the founding sponsor fees and just let people to go ahead and take advantage of the franchisee, which is our member, then that's not what AAHOA should be all about. We've got to protect. So that's the reason when we did our survey, members was one dying mere need. Let's face it, $160,000 liquid damages. Why would we have to pay that, even when we want to leave a brand? If a brand did not perform 65% occupancy, then after we've met all the renovation plans, then we should be able to leave by just giving a brand $25,000 so we can move on the way. It's like a marriage. It's an amicable resolution. Not all marriages work, but at the end of the day, $160,000 is a lot of money, and then the hotelier has to spend that money with legal costs and basically eventually maybe get a judgment. So in good faith and fair dealing, it did not comply with what we're looking at in good faith and fair dealing. And so our members need to educate themselves, learn to read a feasibility study. But it's important to read your franchise agreement, understand it, and which brand you deal with. So measure twice and cut once is what I would advise our members.
Well, with that, we will then close out this point number 10. We thank you again for joining us, and we would highly encourage you, if you have not had a chance, go to the AAHOA website, and we would love for you to be educated on each of these points so that, as CK said, all 12 of them can be used by you, your attorney, in your negotiations to ensure that you get the best franchise agreement for your circumstances and the location at which you are. So thank you again for joining us. We look forward to seeing you at the next session for point number 11. And with that, go AAHOA, go 12 points, and thank you. It's been a great session. Appreciate it, CK.
Thank you for allowing me to come.
Yes,
Talk
thank
about
you.
this. Yeah.